Tom's interest in hot air ballooning has helped put New Mexico on the map.
Welcome to Albuquerque, New Mexico, home of the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta.
By 1972, he had gotten around to where they had about a dozen balloons, and he would come and say, well, Governor, please come and help us to get a little bit more visibility of the launching of the balloons. So it's always cold in the morning, but we'd go down and we'd launch the balloons.
You have never seen a television sight like this before. A politician, a weatherman, and a pig.
Pretty soon, Tom's efforts led to Albuquerque being the first host of the World Championship of Ballooning, and a push into years of worldwide attention. From beer to milk, balloons were great publicity.
You know, ballooning has really helped put New Mexico on the map. And no wonder, it's a sport that really gives you a lift. So does this, a cold glass of fresh Valley Gold milk. And not just at mealtime, because whether you're ballooning or relaxing or having fun with friends, Valley Gold milk makes it perfect. There's just nothing like the frosty, cold, Sun Country fresh taste of Valley Gold. So next time you buy milk, why not do what I do when I need a lift? Always ask for Valley Gold.
Longtime enthusiast Sid Cutter says it was their love for the sport that brought he and Tom together as friends and business partners.
He was a pretty great balloon pilot, but he went off to do other things, and so he quit flying and did mostly announcing and things like that. So I'm sure, you know, once you're a politician like he is, he'll want to stay in it some way or t'other.
Well, I loved how he said how you'd stay in politics one way or t'other. So let's go back to your political hat that you've worn for so many years. How did the legislature change in all those years? You started out in the House, then you were elected in the Senate.
Well, I started as a page boy and a reading clerk in the House.
That's really starting it, yeah.
But then, and my dad served a couple terms, and I actually stayed on a year or two after he left. He left when they began to have to district the legislature, and legislators ran as districts, and he wasn't reelected. But I was elected as the youngest ever member of the Senate at 25 in 1970. The election was in 1972, and it was the year of the 18-year-old vote, and there was a lot of attention being paid to young people in politics, and all of that worked well for me at the time. And so I started in the Senate and made a lot of missteps. I was really, really lucky because I was very liberal Democrat from the university area, and I'm a governed Democrat, and came to the Senate, and I had long hair and didn't really fit in. But a lot of the people knew my dad. And so as a favor to him, they sort of took me under their wing and tried to help guide me through all this. And I ended up having mentors that if it weren't for him, wouldn't have been available to me. And so I was really lucky about being brought along and sort of raised in the legislature, even as an elected senator raised by the older members.
Who were some of the mentors that showed you how things were done in the Senate?
Well, I remember particularly Thibaut Chavez was an old friend of my dad's, and he was really helpful to me. And Bob McBride and Jerry Apodaca and John Conway. And, there's lots and lots of them. And Harry McAdams. And so with their guidance and their sort of tolerance and patience, I mean, I didn't stop introducing controversial bills. And I remember I used to be the only one to vote for things, and then there'd be two of us, and then there were 3 or 4, and we finally got 10 votes one day, and that was a big deal. And those things became less controversial with time. And I used to. In the old days, the finance committees would meet in the middle of the night, and after everybody left is when they'd start spending money. Well, I wasn't a member of the committee, but I would stay around, and I would bring apples and pour coffee and sharpen pencils for the members. And I would be sitting in the back of the room at 5 o'clock when they finally finished.
Listening.
Yep. And I remember Aubrey Dunson, well, Tommy's sure been nice to us all night. Let's see if Tommy wants anything. And so I'd get some money for the newborn intensive care unit at UNM Hospital or something like that. And so I grew up. It was a great way for me to learn about the legislature. It kind of it got me off my high horse. I was, I thought I was a really hot deal, being the youngest ever elected, and it slowed me down a little bit. But also it taught me the importance of service to others, and how important the idea of the Senate as a family was. And I was the younger son of the family, but I was part of the family, and I always approached it that way, and that served me really well in my years in the Senate.
It's not only the senators that treated you like family. I think you would get grooming pointers during the wild 70s and 80s from people like Margaret Larragoiti and
when I was the page boy, and I would move up here with my dad, he would be busy all the time, so I would stop by the Capitol on my way to school, and Margaret and some of the clerks then would make sure my hair was combed and my homework was done, and I had my lunch with me, and they kind of raised me up around here. And then Juanita Pino was the chief clerk of the Senate, and she was pretty good about keeping me from wearing my Beatle outfits into the Senate. That was pretty funny. And the fascinating thing, I guess, now that I look back on it, is the balloon fiesta started on the same day as my first fundraiser for my state Senate campaign. And the first World Championships for ballooning, where we really became internationally known, was like the third week of my first session in the legislature. So I kind of ran off with the circus, with Sid, putting on that first World Championship right in the middle of my first campaign. And the two became tied together for all those years.
What are some of the issues that you were the lone voice crying in the wilderness with that are now totally accepted? And there have been issues of controversy that you've shepherded through all your years in the Senate that now people can't remember that we didn't have such a law. What are some of your favorite issues you've seen reach total acceptance?
I don't know about total acceptance, but we used to argue years ago that we needed more attention to early childhood education, family intervention, programs to help with parenting, all that kind of stuff that to a generation of people who'd come out of World War II and the Korean War just didn't resonate, that it didn't make sense to them. That wasn't how they'd done it. And we were watching it happen. I say we, me and some of the younger members, were kind of watching it happen in our neighborhoods, and began to, and things like, I remember a huge victory we had was to get permission to allow Medicaid money to be spent for in-home care. In the old days, before you could receive any federal financial assistance, you had to go into a nursing home, which was a bad thing to do for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, they thought it was the end.
Yeah, that was, it wasn't healthy for them. It was way too expensive for the level of care that most people needed. And so when we finally passed Senate Bill 123, which was the coordinated in-home care, it was a major success. Well, these days, of course, everybody understands that and the need for it.